Welcome to the George and Joyce Wein Jazz and Heritage Center. It's nice to see y'all tonight. My name is Kia Robinson Hatfield. I'm the Director of Programs, Marketing, and Communications here at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation. We are the nonprofit that owns Jazz Fest, the world-famous Jazz Fest. The foundation's role with Jazz Fest is to invest the monies directly back into Louisiana communities. And we do that through the programs that we produce. We do that through our free community festivals in which we hire, of course, local musicians, gig workers, food vendors, craft vendors. We do that through our economic development programs, like our community partnership programs, which just this past year we distributed $1.2 million in grants to Louisiana schools, individuals, nonprofits, after-school programs. Also through our, if you've heard of this, the Jazz and Heritage Music Relief Fund, in which we, thank you, distributed nearly $2 million to Mardi Gras Indians, baby dolls, musicians, gig workers, and that work is still ongoing. So, and finally, we invest through our music education initiatives, like our Heritage School of Music, and which provides free music education to kids across the GNO area. And like this program, the Tom Dent Congo Square Lecture Series. Tom Dent was a jazz scholar, a playwright, oral historian, journalist, and cultural activist. He was also an early board member of the Jazz and Heritage Foundation and served as executive director from 1987 to 1990. During his tenure, he launched the Congo Square Lecture Series as a means to engage artists and thinkers in an intellectual dialogue on issues of culture and commerce. Since its beginnings, the series has delved into the history of New Orleans music and the ways its artists have responded to the world around them. And because of this, the Tom Dent Lectures are named in his honor. So before we begin tonight, I would like to introduce to you a person who's also a beloved cultural staple and revered in our very community. She is an historic interpreter, active culture keeper for over 30 years. She founded the Black Storyville Baby Dolls as a nod to the first documented baby dolls in the Amazon Benevolent Society. She co-founded Unheard Voices of Louisiana, addressing those marginalized through traditional historical storytelling. And currently, she is Big Queen of the Yellow Pocahontas Tribe. Please welcome Ms. Dianne Honoré.
Thank you. How do I live up to that? All right, so welcome, y'all. This is so exciting for me tonight. Y'all know we have like over 160 years of history between the three of these superb gentlemen to get through tonight. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce them so we can get right into everything. All the way to my far left, I have to acknowledge first Mr. Ray Blazio. He is the oldest black masking Indian. Hats off to that. He is also founder of the Wild Apache Tribe. He did once mask with Tootie Montana as well. Next to him is Mr. Fred Johnson, CEO of the Neighborhood Development Foundation. He is an activist, a true culture keeper. He is also co-founder of the Black Men of Labor. And seated right next to me is Mr. Darryl Montana, Big Chief of the Yellow Pocahontas, coming out of retirement this year. A true culture bearer and artist in his own right. So we will get started. Yes. So tonight, of course, we want to focus on the life and legacy of Tootie Montana and some of the history of the black masking culture. But let's go ahead and start with Darryl. Give us some idea of what it was like. You know, because we know Tootie, you know, in his suits, and there he is in the center. We know the outside, right? So give us an idea of what it was like when you were young, you know, growing up with Tootie as a small child, even before you started to mask.
Thank you. I will go back as far as before I even started dressing. I started dressing somewhere in around 1963, 64. And prior to that, how I got involved in it, my daddy, and in doing this dressing, mask and Indian, it's very hard, I think, to get a young child involved in dressing because it takes so much to really make it happen. But what my daddy did was, with us in the household, he what he would do, he would give us an allowance on weekends, but he would also persuade us to help him with his suit. And back then, they really didn't have a lot of places to buy the supplies. So what he would do, like if he needed a certain color, bead or sequin or whatever, back then we used to basically destroy the suits, make them and destroy them. And what he would do to get us involved is he gave us, we would fill up the little glass. At that time, the beads came in little vials, little glass and plastic bottles. And what he would do is he would have us to cut the sequins and beads off the old suit, and if he needed that particular color, and he would have us to take, and he made a little cup, and I was supposed to bring it, but it was a sifter he made, and it was basically a cup where he punched holes in it, and it was made like a rice strainer. And what he would do was he would have us to cut all the stuff off, put it in the cup, string everything, and you take and shake the cup, and all the trash, which would be basically the sequins would stay in there and the thread would stay in there, but the beads would fall out. And we would take the beads and put them back in the bottle, and for every bottle we did, we would get like 5 cents. And that's how he got us involved, involved in it. But at that time, we were living in the Ninth Ward, in the Desire Housing Project. And I remember seeing my parents working on the suit, but I never really knew exactly what it was for until one year we all caught the bus from downtown to the 7th Ward on St. Anthony Street by my grandmother's house, 1313 St. Anthony Street. And I got a chance to see what he was making. And when I saw it, I really wanted to do it, but he didn't want me to do it. And I even remember him saying that his mother didn't want him to do it. And the reasons why was because back then it was different from how it is now. They used to physically fight. And my grandmother told my daddy that, boy, you don't want to fool with that. And he said he's a man, and he want mass, and he's gonna mass. So anyhow, when I saw him, I wanted to do it. Again, he didn't really want me to do it, so when we moved from downtown and we moved to the 7th Ward, I told him I wanted to do it, so he had some little patterns. He would always have these patterns sitting around, and I would take the patterns and trace them, and I made my first suit by myself. I mean, he helped pay for the feathers and stuff like that, but I basically started my suit, and I had to have been somewhere around maybe 8 or 9 years old. And I masked the first year, and I said this outside at the statue is that when you get involved in this thing, it's like you can't stop. And I know Fred and Hatchet can attest to what I'm saying, is that it's like an addiction. And even with me retiring in 2017, I thought I was through. Nobody could tell me I was going to dress again. I need you all to know that it's an abusive body, mind, and spirit, because you fooling with this stuff. And the thing about it is this: I know for over 40 some more years, I tried to make a suit and tried to be ready or finished with it before Mardi Gras Day. And my daddy would always do me this, and he knew he would always predict stuff before it even happened, and I used to have to look at. In fact, a lot of things that's going on in this world today, my daddy predicted way in the '60s. You know, about rent. You know, he was in the construction field, and he said, Darryl, it's gonna be a time when families gonna be living with families, and a whole lot of other stuff that he said, and a lot of stuff that he did say. It came true. But again, as far as dressing, I thought again that I would never ever dress after 2017, and I kind of see why he retired and he came back. After a while, you get to where you're not in that light. Your light has gone out in a sense. And then you have a lot of times you have people that have been supporting you that come out and they say, like with me, a lot of guys that's supposed to be my competition, you know, they would always tell me, they say, man, you need the mask. It ain't the same without you here. You know, so, you know, I've had them to come and say, man, can I take a picture with you? And I say, oh, of course, come on. But I'm just saying that in a tradition, I think and I feel that there's a lot of ugliness in it, but the end result of it is there's a lot of love. I know with my father, if he promised you he would do whatever as it relates to the culture, whether you needed him to draw something for you, if he needed to give you something, if he said he was gonna do it, it was law. And I always say that I try to live my life the way he lived. And it's about being responsible, being committed. And I say this, that in dressing, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, because it's once you get hooked, you hook.
That's true. Very true. Fred, how did you meet Tootie, and how did you get involved in this whole madness?
Well, first of all, thank you all for inviting me, and thank the audience for taking time out of their schedules to come and listen to what we have to say. I lived at 2120 Parga Street, Demetrius White. That's between Parga and, that's Parga between Robinson and Villeray. Demetrius White lived in the apartment next to me, and it was a St. Joseph night. And his Uncle Edward and them made a white suit for him. And I had to be 11 going on 12 or 12 going on 13. But something about that night, that white suit got a hold of me. And I don't want to sound spooky or crazy, but it's a spiritual thing, and when it bites you, you bit. I have not put an Indian suit on in 30, soon to be 36 years. And there's a certain time of the year, I get this feeling. And massing with Tootie, we'd always have a practice every Sunday of the new year. So, but Demetrius White got a hold of me. I walked down the street to Melvin the next day, and I said, hey, Melvin, I want a mask. Do you know how to sew? I said, no. He gave me a piece of cardboard and some sequins, and I started sewing and started sewing and started sewing. He said, fill in the gap, fill in the gap. And that was it. The next thing I know, I had a suit, but I didn't have any marable. So I go down to Hatchet House with Melvin and Manusi and the whole room of us, and Hatchet playing Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin and sewing, and he keep talking about Jerome, he need to bring himself here and blah, blah, blah. So about 3 hours later, a car pull up, and Hatchet say, open the door, that's him. And in the door comes some boxes. Jerome had been to New York, And I had never met Jerome. And he walked in, and I'm looking at this dude in awe. I mean, he looked like he was 8 feet tall. He had a natural. I can remember him clearly. He had a natural. He had on a black mock neck shirt with a pair of black mohair pants. He had on a whiskey colored jacket. I'm serious. I mean, I'm 12 going on 13, so I'm looking at this dude because I'm like, where he come from? And his jacket got zippers all over the place. And he asked Hatchet, he said, who's masking? Hatchet said, well, Fred masking. So he gave me $120 on the spot. But the jacket matched the boots, and the boots came up when he kneeled down to fool with Hatchet apron. I'm looking at him because I can't take my eyes off him, right? And I'm like, wow. So that pulled me in, and one thing led to another, and I mean, Tootie was right around the corner. Well, at that time, it was on St. Anthony Street, and I worked in the grocery store at Jack's grocery store with Avis, Tootie's niece. So I would go to the house and paint the bathroom and the kitchen on St. Anthony Street for Avis, and I would see the back room with all Edward stuff in it. So I'm looking and looking and looking and looking. So it just further feed my appetite. Yeah, Edward is Tootie Montana's brother, second chief. So Meathead and I want to have an Indian practice. Now let me back up just a minute here. My grandmother, my daddy's mom lived 2120 Parker between Robertson and Villeray. My mom's mom lived 2339 Parker between Durbin and Claiborne. Across the street from my grandmother's house was the Crocodile, right? The bar. Well, as a young boy, I could hear the drums going, and my grandma would keep telling me, go in the back, because they may start fighting, they may start shooting, go in the back, go in the back. Well, little did I know that was Tootie's practice. He lived in the Desire Project. Well, fast forward, history come along, Meathead and I, we bit, Meathead in there? Meathead and I, we bit by the bug, and Tootie not having no practice. So Meathead and I on the corner of Robertson and Parker in the cold, having a practice. Me and him, just me and him, we rolling. So Jerome come by in a cab. So we tell him, hey, Smith, man, we want to have a practice. He said, well, go talk to Chief. I said, okay. So I go talk to Chief, and he says, let me tell you why I don't have a practice. He said, I was living in the Desire Project. I expect the dudes to get the practice started. By the time I get there, I don't want to practice all night because I have to get up 5 o'clock in the morning to get ready to get on the bus, transfer 2 buses, and get to work. He said, but these guys won't wait till 9 o'clock at night to start the practice. So I stopped the practice. So I said, well, Chief, if you permit me to, I'll make sure the practice is set and ready. When you come in, you take it where you want, and we done. And that's how we got to have practice, because he wanted somebody who would do what they said he was going to do. And as Mahmoud said earlier, if you ever encounter somebody who said they was going to do what their word was their bond, was him. And that's how he lived. I remember meeting him by Alco Cleaners one year. And he said, hey, boy, you mad? What you doing? That's how he talked. What you doing? I said, I ain't doing nothing, Chief. What you doing? What you mean you ain't doing nothing? I said, I got time. He said, time? He said, let me tell you about time. He said, time make an ass out you. Your black hair turn gray. Your nice, pretty teeth fall out. He said, your fast walk turn slow. He said, man ain't got time. When the man say he got time, he don't know what he talking about. He said, boy, you better get sewing. So, but this whole Indian thing, is, you got to appreciate it. And here's the deal. Right as we were coming out of slavery and going into segregation, white people didn't want black people to walk on the sidewalk with them. They didn't want you to look at them. They wanted you to get off the sidewalk. They wanted you to be less than to them. And there was some black men who took the position that said, we're not going to do that. And when they took that position, they knew they had to do one or two things. They either had to run or they had to die. And some of them chose to run. And when they ran to the Indian reservation. The white man was not going on that reservation. Well, quite naturally, when the black man got on the reservation with the Indian, we're going to commingle and co-mix wherever we are. And the next thing you know, the white man stopped looking for him, and when the black man did come back off the reservation, you had a Mardi Gras. And at that point, Mardi Gras was segregated because you had a white Mardi Gras and you had a black Mardi Gras. So the black people in their communities created their own Mardi Gras. So you mimic something or you mimic somebody. So the black men who went to the reservation came back and they saw it was Mardi Gras, so they mimicked the native Indian. And that's how you see, when you see that early Indian suit, it looks like a native Indian until the likes of Allison, Montana came along and embellished it to bring it into an African spirit. And what gets me more than anything is for the young guys who's masking to not to know the origin of where this come from. It's all right to know the surface, but you gotta know the substance. Because without the substance, you don't know where you're going, you don't know where you come from, you damn sure don't know where you're going. And everybody else is studying us but us. It's one thing to make the suit, but it's another thing to understand your heritage. When you don't understand your heritage, you get bought and sold as if you're on a slave auction block. And that's my message. Listen, I tell Ray all the time, I'm like Ray Charles. I had my fun if I don't get well no more. Ain't nobody in here had more fun masking Indian. And let me tell you, masking Indian is not an I game. It's a we game. So in order for me to sit there and make that suit, I got to have a certain caliber of people I got to meet. Because I don't need to walk around just people telling me I'm pretty. I need to be able to have somebody that is my equal and that understand the game and have the same level of respect for me, and we meet, and that makes the day, right? My baptism in this, I had to meet Spyboy and Nat. And if anybody know anything about Spyboy and Nat for the White Eagles, and Nat will shake your nerve in every body you got. Beautiful dude, but play Indian. So I met him at Galveston on a track. I got Walter and Chump and all these old men with me, and they're like, all right, Fred, you got to meet Nat. Now, here's what's in my head. I got to go back home with these men, right? And I know if I don't meet Nat, I'm going to have trouble out these men I got to go back with, because they're going to be like, you punked out or you beat out. You feel me? Nat, he take a half a block on you, and he running and 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 running. And his hair loose, his face painted beautiful, and he play Indian. And he much more advanced than me, much more experienced than me, but I had these men behind me, I had Tootie behind me, and I had some nerve. So as he got close and close, and he yelling, and he listen, he will shake your foundation. He will shake you. And listen, he ain't gonna cuss. He playing Indian, he ain't gonna be F you this. No, that ain't how he coming. He coming clean, 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 and he talking Indian. He talking straight Indian, right? So as he got close up on me, I had a shotgun he didn't know I had, and I let that shotgun go, and he took off. And he come back, he said, you got me. But I learned how to dance in the practice from this one here. we rode in what was called a tender trap. And he got me in, him and Jerome, they got me in. We went to Porgy-and-Tonty. Most folks don't know about Big Chief Boy. We went to Porgy-and-Tonty, and then we went further back of town on Durgeon and something. Then we left that, we went to Lafitte Street. We left Lafitte. We made it uptown, the Second and Dry, to one of them spots. But Ray Blazio taught me how to sing and dance. And when you get on the floor, you don't have nothing in your hand, nothing. No handkerchief, no tambourine, no nothing. Because Indian can be a dirty game. And if you dancing with somebody who despise you, they could have a razor, they could have a knife, and every time they come by you, you cut. And in the momentum of this, you don't even know you cut. But Ray Blazio put me in the back of the tender trap. What year that car was, Ray? 1955. Right? I born in 53, so you but Ray, you know, everybody know him, but let me tell you, he was the Flagboy of the nation. Yeah, he was the Flagboy of the nation. Now, he was a big chief, but when I ran under him, he was the Flagboy, and all the other Flagboys came behind him, and when he finished, he said, hey, bro, I'm done, and he brought me all the stuff. Remember that? He gave me all the stones and all the sequins and all the beads, but let me back up 1 minute. I'm going on and on and on and on and on and on, but let me tell you something. Behind every good man, there's a good woman. He had a good woman behind him, his first wife. When he wasn't there, she was sewing. When Tootie was working, Miss Joyce was sewing. I would be remiss to sit here and talk about how great this was without talking about how the women held up the bloodstained banner in this. Because Miss Joyce was she'd take care of house, she'd cook, and she'd have a certain amount of design she gonna do, and she roll. You talk about roll with it, she roll with it. And that is what creates the problem for us, because you have to have a woman who see this, love this, and appreciate this, because it's gonna create a divide. It's gonna create a divide. Because everybody going out, you can't go out. You can go, but who's gonna fill in that cardboard? You can go, that cardboard gonna be right there when you come back, right? And time keep ticking. 3 weeks out, you go crazy. So, but Miss Joyce, she held up that banner. Not your second wife, your first wife. What her name was? Viola, after my grandma. Can she sew? I'm done.
All right. Thank you for that. All right. So let's hear from Ray. Ray, how'd you get your start? How did you meet Tootie? And I know you started your own gang, the Wild Apache. How many gangs do y'all think came out of the Yellow Pocahontas?
How many gangs came out of them?
Yeah.
7 or 8.
Shit, might be more. Over the years?
Only thing I know is Fayaya,
Your microphone.
Fayaya, Black Feather, myself, Wild Apache, Delco, Creole Asola, and who else y'all thinking about? Who? Monogram Hunter was way before all this stuff we talked about.
No, they came back and retook the name.
Oh, Pie and them, yeah, I forgot that, my little boy Pie and them, yeah. Jeremy and all of them, yeah. So what Merlin gang is now?
Trouble Nation.
Huh?
Trouble Nation. Well, it's Trouble now. It was Trouble Nation, but the person who created it had issues with that, them taking it, so they took the nation out just cause they
Well, what you call them started the gang with saying that Trouble Nation Emmanuel, but they ain't never mad though. Marquis was supposed to be with that. They ain't never hit the street, right?
So how did you,
Regardless, they was all right then, whatever.
Trouble Nation?
Yeah, a minimum of 12 games.
Yeah.
It's a minimum of 12. That's not the one, because they all didn't last. You know, they may get a 2-3 year run, and then it dissolve, and then somebody else come back, and they create something different.
Well, they come from the Yellow Pocahontas?
That really speaks to his leadership ability.
Yeah.
How did you get your start, Ray? I know you also started in the 60s, right?
Huh?
Did you start in the 60s?
In the 50s.
In the 50s.
Yeah, well, the fella across the street with Tootie first Flagboy, Charles Farrier, for the Mardi Hunters I'm talking about now. And we talking about Mardi Gras, not no carnival. I mean carnival, not no Mardi Gras. Carnival, not no Mardi Gras. Yeah. So, and then in the next block was Tootie first Spyboy, Charlie Brown, you know? And so what happened, Charles took a liking toward me and was supposed to make me a suit. So he did all he could do. So the suit wasn't never ready till that St. Joseph night. And I wore the suit at the dance they had by the Center Club. And that's the year I met Fletcher. And he calling and playing, I'm playing with him. And so he told Tootie he ready, you know. So that year was Fletcher last year. Fletcher just married 3 years as the chief of the White Eagle. So then after that, when I was able to go on my own, when I was working at the Circle Market, or the Circle Food store, 30 cents an hour. And, but the tips were so great, you know? And I started buying my little stuff by Woolworth, the little pack of beads, 10 cents you're talking about. And man, I got my design and start working on it and things. Then I wound up a lady named Bernadine Dudley. She cut me out a cape and my aprons and all and cover them. And we started fixing that little suit up. That was the first year I masked on my own with a headband and a one plume and I was having my little fun. And so the next year, I masked in red trimmed in white. And I started hitting the street. Well, that first year, Powder Blue Red, I met him on Governor Nicholas and Claiborne. He's supposed to be the best flag boy. But he wouldn't meet me because I didn't have no crown on my head, he said. So he stopped masking for that little while. So when I come back in 63, I was all in black. And when he seen me then, that made him come back. So when he came back, I was in all white that year, 1964. I had went by my friend the Nut. He was one of the best Spyboy Donald had. And he had stopped masking and stuff, but he was suing for Donald and stuff. So I asked him to sew my crown. So he sewed my crown, that white suit. He said, "You got enough of feathers to make a target?" I said, "No, I don't want no target." I said, "It's all right the way you done this." He said, "But look a little Ray, you ought to change your position." He said, "Because there ain't nobody gonna beat Powder Blue Red in that." He said, "Man, they're gonna be pretty." So what happened, I was the only one masked with Tootie that year. Tootie brother Edward, and Edward daughter Toki. And we back at the stop on Spain Street by one of them contractors that Tootie worked with on the job. Had a stop for her. And Jake was chief scout for Donald. Donald Harrison, Senior. And so Jay come hollering and hollering. Said, Creole Highway. I said, yeah. Where y'all at, boy? Where y'all at? Said, we down there. I said, I'm coming. And I said, Chief. I said, Donald down there. Let's go. I said, look, I'm going. Because see, a lot of them like to drink and all that and stop and drink. I buy my own drink. I just ask for a drink, somebody will bring it to you. Man, I'm looking for Indians to play Indian. And boy, that part of Blue Red and that looked like they got paralyzed when they seen me. I had that white suit with that peacock and stuff, and when I bent my back over, I had a peacock in a cage, his head come out. Boy.
Yeah, that was a hell of a suit.
Yeah.
I remember that suit.
And
And
look,
you had that stick,
part of Blue Red
big
say,
stick.
part of Blue Red say you're pretty, but you got too much red on your face. I said, yeah, that's all right. Look at them boots, you know? Yeah. And so here come the nut. Little Red, come here. Come let Donald see you. Come let. So this, well, they tell me, well, Nat and part of Blue Red ain't got nothing for this. Yeah. So I went and let Donald see me, and then I told Tootie they were down there, and Tootie come, and we played a while, and then I wound up leaving Tootie that year. I left him. She said, go ahead straight up, clip on, I'm coming. Shit, when I look back, I don't know where he was. I was getting over that clip-on overpad with the second line was behind me. Man, I was going to look for Indian.
And you had Lloyd Hubbard carried your stick.
Yeah, bro. And then I had a whole lot of people that helped me. I had a fella named Javah. I used to sew, and after I lay out my apron, only thing I had to do is bring him the sequins and the beads in a thread. Fill that out for me, Javi, and he'll fill out that apron, you know. But when you got good help, you're supposed to appreciate it, bro. You making these suits they're making now, you need a factory, bro. Shit, all that sewing got to be done, man. Shoot, boy, look, I can't do it no more. And look, you better be careful, because it take your sight. Yeah, it'll take your sight, man. Boy, but listen, I enjoy the time like you saying, Richard. I had my fun if I don't have no more. Man, I used to go over that clip-on overpass, damn near jumping 10 feet high. I used to be rolling, boy. We used to have a good second line, man. Yeah.
All right, so speaking of suit building, you want to talk a little bit about Tootie, his trade?
By trade, my daddy was a wire latherer. It was, before they started using wire, they would use the little wood lap strips. And then I guess as time went on, they changed from dealing with the wood lap strips and they started using the wire. But my daddy would always say that his job was he would do the skeleton or the bone structure of a building, and then the plasterers would come and put the skin on it.
Let me just because we put the picture of the La Pop. This was some of Tootie's work.
The
I also
look-
just want to drop in there that, you know, a lot of these trades, a lot of highly skilled men of color, you know, built a lot of these, we talk about owning the 6th and 7th Ward and so forth, but we built that, you know, and a lot of that, the trade work comes out of slavery. You know, we were master craftsmen, and that was passed along through generations, you know, until after slavery, of course. And this is where Tootie, you know, this trade was passed on to him. So his work truly is a thing of beauty, but we wanted to show you. You can go on, Darryl. I just wanted to.
So underneath this, there's wire, And I know he would take a piece of wood and he would get a piece of tin. And he had some kind of way how he would cut that tin, and it have these little curves in it. And then when you take and put the cement or the plaster down, and he would take that little trowel thing that he created, and he would make the mold. He would do it, and if it was low on this end, he put a little bit more cement, and the little piece that he made with his hand would take the excess off it, and then it would wind up being something created like that. In fact, this logo up here, that's his work. And he put his trade into his suits. And if you look at the pictures of his work, I'm talking about his suits, you can see this type of structure in his suits. You know, I want to say this, is that I remember when I first got involved in it, and even later on as time went on, as it relates to the tribe, you talking about a bunch of proud men. You know, we knew that our chief couldn't be touched. And that was that motivated us. It was like terror to meet the Yellow Pocahontas.
Yeah.
Everybody that met us, it was like, come on, let's meet him and get it over with, y'all.
Yeah.
Let's get this ass whipping,
Yeah.
you know, because that's what it was.
Yeah.
And, you know, but we joked amongst ourselves because we knew we had it. And, you know, it was a beautiful thing. It really was a beautiful thing.
So basically, you know, I was getting at how the old style was basically just flat beadwork, which is beautiful. But he took his trade and he put it into his suits.
He did. Another thing is if you notice, I bought a poster board. And the reason why I bought the poster board, I never forget, we were also a part of the Bucket Men with the tambourine and fan. And we were meeting at the building on Robinson, and I never forget Jerome Smith said to him, Chief, we having problems with getting the baskets. And he said, hell, we don't need to get no baskets from the French market. We can make our baskets. So what he did was he said, give me a ruler and a pencil and a poster board and some scissors. And he cut out baskets for everybody. So what I did yesterday, I made a miniature version of the kind of baskets he was making, and it was made out of poster board.
And
It was made out of poster board. So everything, when you see second line clubs on the street, when you see second line baskets on the street or whatever, 9 times out of 10, it came from that man. So, you know, and Jerome Smith, I never forget, a couple of years ago, he was at a second line. The second line was the Treme Sidewalk Steppers. And he was complaining, he said, they don't give credit. He said, a lot of times to me, the younger generation think that they are the ones that brought this stuff to the table. No, they copied what he was already doing. So we always try to make sure that we give credit where credit is due. And 9 times out of 10, whenever you see the Indians on the street, whenever you see the associated pleasure clubs on the street, 9 times out of 10, the stuff that they wear, the decoration that they have, came out of that house on Villere Street.
Yeah, he used to sit on the porch in the summertime, and you couldn't see, but he would be working on the porch, and we would periodically go stop and talk to him, and what he would always say is, listen, I got so much stuff in my brain. He said, I can create a suit for everybody in the tribe, and nobody will have the same designs. And he was masterful at it like no other. I mean, if you gave him a ruler, a piece of cardboard, a pencil, and a scissors, it was on. Yeah, it was on. I kid you not. It was on. He would, when he finished with it, you'd have something like you've never seen before. I mean, that's how ingenious he was. You know what I mean? So it was certainly, and he always had this thing that what he would say is, he says, listen, nothing matter if you don't make the day. See, if you don't make the day, it don't matter. So when you break that down, what he's saying is that you can have all the Indian practice you want. You can run up and down the street talking about a masking. You can, hey, if you want to be an Indian, you have to sow. You have to make the sacrifice, as Darryl been saying. I would tell him, I was blessed and fortunate that I got pulled into the housing as I transformed from masking Indian. I went into first-time home buyer training. So that gave me an out, but it didn't leave me with a void, because I had something that was fulfilling that still allowed me to reach back and help the parents of the children that when I was my 17s at Tambourine and Fan, I could not otherwise reach. So doing the first-time home buyer training program allowed me to have a fulfillment that, okay, I'm not sewing, but I am doing something. I'm not in the bar, I'm not smoking weed, I'm not snorting cocaine, I'm not drugging, I'm not drinking. I am doing something constructive because I'm dedicating myself to helping to break the back on poverty and to create assets so that these parents can pass on some wealth to their children. But if you try to come out of this thing, out of this addiction, unequivocally, out of this addiction, you gotta replace an addiction with something else. All of the rehab places tell you that. You can't go cold turkey. You gotta have something to replace that. So I had that, and what I did was, to make certain that I could get this done, I set my hours where I would go to work at 10 o'clock in the morning and work till 9, 10 o'clock at night. So when the guys come, say, no, man, I don't want to take your designs because I'm working. And then I didn't want to take your designs while I'm sewing your designs. You out with your woman, you at the movies, you in the club. No, that's not working like that. Mahmoud will tell you, Mark Surf dead and gone. We took some stuff from Mahmoud.
That's right.
Mahmoud said, hey, bro, we going to finish this. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, right? And Mark said, hey, bro, call the dude up. Tell him we're on our way with it. And you didn't know this, but he said, and if he ain't up sewing, I ain't sewing nothing else. I said, Lord, let this dude be up. So when we got there, he was at the table. And that's how that's supposed to go. But masking with Allison, Montana, there's nothing comparable to it. And listen, it is the most self-incarcerating thing you could do. The only other hardest thing in my life that I've ever done aside making an Indian suit is burying my dead. That is, listen, you don't know what it is to be sewing and everybody going out, but you can't go. Thanksgiving, you get to have dinner, and after a certain time, something is in your head telling you got them designs waiting for you. So you go to the bed, pull a box out from under the bed, and you get to working. Everybody going out. Your friends going, especially when we was in high school, they going to dances. So it is the most self-incarcerating thing you could do. But the reward for it, it allows you to give something back to your community, because when you understand the foundation which it came off of, you were forced to be able to be creative in your community, because white people told you you couldn't come over here. And if you came over here, you may get an ass whipping, or you may get killed, or you better have on a waiter suit so you can demonstrate that you coming in here to work, because you're not coming over here to have a good time. You stay over there, niggas. Don't come over here. So we understood that. So there was nothing on Bourbon Street for us. We had the ability to have access to Allison, Montana, who said to us, where you are is beautiful. Now, how you want to contribute? And that's what I always live with, because bar none, I don't know what the future holds, but bar none. The man to his face, behind his back, you couldn't beat him. You could not beat him. They said, oh, you're going to be late. Yeah, okay. So what we do is Wingy lived uptown, so we say, okay, Chief, I'm going to go uptown. I'm going to get Wingy, give you a chance so he don't feel pressured. And by the time he come down, they let that crown down on Villeray Street. That was over the body fender shop. When they let it down, hey, the gang ready. And let me tell you, he had 25 in the gang, 35 in the gang. We'd have 5 Spyboys, 8 Flagboys. I mean, it was a hell of a thing, you know what I mean? So when I say to you, I've had my fun if I don't get well in the mo, I mean, you know, for what I see now, I can go to the bayou and throw rocks in the bayou. I'm good. I'm golden. Yeah, I'm golden because, and again, it's not just, as I said this earlier, it's not an I game, people. It's a we game. You have to have people on the other side of you that's equivalent to you. You don't want to spend your time, spend your spirit, spend your money, spend your energy, negate all the other sociable things you can do to meet somebody who just threw something together. I mean, and you can't walk around and mask with a mirror where you're just meeting yourself. You gotta have some competition and some, not just competition, but relevant competition to make this thing matter.
Amen. Can we play the video?
At that time, you didn't worry about who was the prettiest and all that, because in the early days when they was fighting, Indians used to meet and fight. It wasn't about being pretty. It was about who had the more nerve, who would squeeze the trigger on a gun or stick an ice pick or a knife in you. So you didn't have to be pretty. Some of the raggedest chiefs, Indians, Mardi Gras Indian on the street, was highly recognized because, not because of their costume of the beauty, but because they had nerve. They was so-called a bad man. See? But today, that Sam Poison, if he was around, he would be just a raggedy man. That's all. 'Cause it's not about being bad. It's about being pretty.
And especially out on the street, that helped to stop the violence in the Indian community as it was early on.
Well, I think what he did was he started dealing not with the physical battles, but we say now the battle was with the needle and thread. Mm-hmm. And like he said, that if they were raggedy, there was just a raggedy Indian on the street. It was about being pretty. So it went from physically fighting, like we say now we fight with the needle and thread. In fact, I had a chance to read an article that was done by Kalama Yasalam. And he said in his article that even with the police department, the mayor, whomever, politically, he said none of those people had the wherewithal to stop the violence. And he said in his article that my father was the only man he knew that was ever able to stop the violence in this city. And it was Tootie Montana. And it was because the needle and thread, everybody gravitated to it. You know, when you involved in this, you don't have time to get involved in devilment because you don't have that kind of time. When the time that you do have, because you got to work a job, I remember working and on a Friday would go home and wouldn't come back out the house again until Monday morning to go back to work. All weekend we inside sewing. And that's what it takes to make it happen. And you can't make it happen no other way. In fact, you know, I've seen times when Mardi Gras was like 2-3 days. You're tired, because I've looked at my dad at his last year, his 50th year suit. I'll never forget. Back then, in 1995, I think it was 95 or 96 when he retired, it was more important for him to come out than me. But I had given him my word that I was going to come and help. And I never forget. At that time, we were copyrighting our stuff. And but you had to take pictures of your work before it hit the street Mardi Gras Day. So which means before midnight you had to have taken the pictures, had them developed, go to the post office, mail it to yourself, never open the envelope until you get a chance to get a hard copy, send it to the Library of Congress, and that basically covered you as it relates to having your stuff copywritten. And so at the time, my wife at the time, she had left me to go and take pictures of my daddy's work. And she had to go from there and get them developed, bring it to the post office, we mail her copies. And when she got back home, she said, Darryl, she said, I went by your daddy. She said, he needs your help. And I told her, I said, I'm not finished. She said, but you know, you told him you was going to help him. And my daddy was one. He was a stickler for having a word. And he taught me that about having a word. So I said, she said, you know, if you don't go help him, you're not going to hear the end of it. So I left my stuff. I said, I'm going to come home. I'm going to come back. Now, this is Mardi Gras morning. I said, I'm going to just come back home about 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, we got a couple of hours before the sun is up. I got back to the house, and I was so tired. And she said, well, if you want to, you could just go ahead on and take a nap. And I'm going to work on it until you get up. Never forget, I left the house thinking that my chief was straight. I left him in good hands. When I got to the house on Village Street, my daddy crown was still sitting on the table. They had glue on it that thick. It'll take about a year to dry. And it's Mardi Gras Day. And when I got to him, you know, because I had my suit on. I didn't have my crown on. It was outside. And I go in the house playing Indian, and they're struggling. So I asked my daddy, I said, what happened? And I never forget it. He was standing up, and he was like he was punch drunk. He was punch drunk. He had been up for like 3 days, hadn't really slept. And when I asked him what happened, I never forget. He was like that. I say, wow. That's the intense that it take to make this stuff happen. And I never forget, we did a thing at Xavier University. And they were honoring my father at Xavier. And while he was up speaking, the audience was talking. That was total disrespect, especially after you've witnessed seeing a person put their body through what he was putting his body through. And I got up, and I made a statement to everybody in the place. I said, y'all got to shut up. You know, this man is talking. And the thing about it is this. For the first 10 years, he used to always say he did it for himself. And I'm more than sure you all probably feel it the same way, is that when you first did it, you did it for yourself. But then after a while, you get involved in the people. It's about the people. And that's what he was about, the people. So, you know, for a person to put their, that make that kind of sacrifice, you know, when I came into the park today in Congo Square, I felt good knowing that all the work he did, it was not in vain. So I just want to thank you all for coming out and support, because if we have nobody to come out and support us, what's the point? So just keep doing what you're doing.
Amen.
Thank you.
You raised the question about what made Tootie be able to deal with stopping the violence or slowing the violence. Well, one of the things that I can remember clear about him is, and Nene referred to this evening, but the people loved him and respected him. And whether he was in a suit or whether he was in his civilian clothes, he carried himself like a chief every day. If he was in his work clothes, they respected him as a chief. And I think and believe that it had to do with the level of beautifulness that he brought, and that beauty was an insurmountable amount of joy, and it was kind of like, this is what we got. You feel me? The Sixth Ward don't have this. The Third Ward don't have this. The Ninth Ward don't have this. The Eighth Ward don't have this. The Fifth Ward don't have this. This is what, he's ours. So most people understood, you know, even the cats who got a little bit too much to drink, if he starts saying something to them, you know, they kind of straighten up because he had this chief authority about him. You know what I mean? And they loved him. And they loved him because he gave us something that we can be proud of, because everything else get taken from you. You get called black, you get called ugly, you get called big lip, you get called nigger, you get called dumb. All the derogatory things you could think about is what get placed in front of us. But in the midst of all of those derogatory comments, here comes this beauty. And that's what got us where we are today, because no matter how harsh the treatment was from white people, there was something you couldn't take from us, and it was our spirit. And however derogatory it was, and then today, standing in Congo Square is what that meant about Sunday, because the slaves were permitted to go to that square on Sunday and dance and sing and cry and celebrate. And for anybody to have a conversation about doing anything other than what it represents is insane to the utmost, because it holds a historical perspective bar none when it comes to the African and the African-American experience.
Ray, you want to add anything to that?
I'm all right.
You want to add anything to that?
I'm okay.
Oh, you're okay. All right. So, Ray, what style did you bring to the Wild Apaches?
Well, I had a friend, so he wanted to dance as an Indian before he died. So he had a ball, and I made a sign that we were going to have Indian practice there. That was in 1990, and 1991, that was the first year we hit the street, you know. His name was Louis Armstrong, called him Boss. And the plate was on pork and Dianne. And we started having practice there and stuff, and start accumulating more members. So that's how I started and formed the gang, the Wild Apaches.
Did you also do you took the 3D, right?
Huh?
The 3D style, the beadwork. You beadwork?
Three-dimensional, she's talking.
Oh, yeah, that's the only way we come up
That you
under
learned from
that,
Tootie?
yeah.
Yeah, that
We
the work
learned
was-
from Tootie, majority of the stuff come from there from Tootie, yeah.
And let me just add what made him the Big Chief. So I stopped masking Indian and moved in a different direction, but I would go back and help him. And then in this white suit, I said, Chief, what you need me to do? He said, well, take this apron and fill it in. Well, if you ever got close to Tootie's apron, most of us make a design, it might consist of 2 pieces, maybe 3. Maybe 3. That's a stretch. When I'm filling in this apron, this man then made one design consist of 6 pieces. And he's got 40 of them. So you do the math. And he then put these pieces together, right? And then he then sit them on this apron mathematically, and then he then come all the way around this apron. And these are the details that make him be the Big Chief. Most people might have 3 pieces that make one design. Might. This man had 6, and in some instances he had 8 pieces, and he had like 40 of them. So he had to make these 8 pieces, then glue them together, sew them together, and now it's 1 piece. And he's got 40 of them. See what I'm saying? So that's why a lot of people don't want to meet him, because he's chief behavior. Yeah, he don't just talk this shit. He's chief behavior. Listen, the cats used to get mad with me, talk about, well, you want to run, you think you want to run the game. Man, listen, I don't want to be nothing but a spy boy. I don't want nothing else that's going to take more of my time. First of all, in my mind, I'm like, well, if I have to be a chief, or if I get the inkling that I want to be a chief, I got to meet him. I'm not going through that. You know how much, I'm struggling now just to hold on to this little spy boy suit. So to make a chief suit to be a chief and to meet him, because you got to meet him, right? And he gonna put some cotch on your ass. He gonna bring it to you. So no, but his behavior was an everyday behavior. In a suit, out of suit, with his little stick pin on and his monogram buckle, right? And and his little ring, right? He had the ring. And he had a little shirt with the pocket on it, and his nice belt. And whether he was in that or whether he was in his uniform coming from work, everybody respected him and loved him as chief.
Let me just say this, Fred, if you don't mind. Because I left out and come out and I heard you talking about the pieces. I don't know how he did it. My daddy would do his suit. He would do my niece and nephew's suit. He would do Gina's suit. I don't know how he did it. And when I became chief, I told Gina, I said, Gina, I'm going to do your pattern for you, but you're going to have to sew it. My daddy would leave the house dressed in his suit, and he got a half a suit still sitting on the table that he never had a chance to put on a suit. He was a beast.
Yeah.
He was a beast. He was a beast.
And Miss Joyce made sure he was a beast.
Yeah.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
Yes,
He couldn't have did it
Miss
without.
Joyce made sure he was a beast.
He couldn't have did it without.
Because anything he put on that table, she made sure it was finished.
Yep.
Now, whether he put it on a suit, that's on him. But there was no unfinished designs in her box.
That's right.
None.
So he was recognized as an artist, wasn't he, Darryl?
He received the National Endowment.
At first, it was seen though as folk art, and
Yeah,
then
in fact, let me just say
was-
this.
yeah.
Back in the days, they didn't, folks or the powers didn't recognize us, but we knew we had something of value. And growing up in the household with him, it made me proud, proud as a young black man. You know, the whole community was proud. The city was proud. Again, I remember when I would dress, how the tribe, how we just fed off of him. We knew that we had the baddest that basically walked the earth. Because I think I do pretty good with my work, but I'm not bad as him. This man was the ultimate piece, and I've never met anybody like he was. He was a stickler for his work. He went out on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So he sold 4 days a week. But the stuff he was putting out in 4 days, I don't know how he did it. I know those suits take at least 600 pieces. And you have to take all those pieces. And another thing is this. What he brought to the game was, back in the days when we didn't have the white poster boards, we used to walk the city and grab the advertisement for the different concerts that was going on in the city. We'd walk, my brother Charles know, we would walk, and when we see if they had a concert that was over with and they had the signs on the post, we would pull them down. And that was the cardboard that we used to make our suits. We recognized, or he recognized, after a while, the cardboard, I guess, too, being outside in the elements, they would basically deteriorate. They would basically self-destruct. So what my daddy brought to the table, every piece that he did was covered in satin, the front, and when the piece is finished, he would paint it with glue and then cover the back with satin. So just picture this. You got 600 pieces. Those 600 pieces, each piece was cut out 3 times. So you basically cut out 1,800 pieces. And that's the kind of intensity he put. But another thing is this. The suits that we make now versus the suits we used to make, after a while when he would go in, because at that time we had a shower behind the bedroom, and he would keep all his old suits in the shower. And when you go to pull a piece, it's been in there for a while, it basically will fall apart because the cardboard doesn't hold doesn't hold. But putting the satin on it, the cardboard may wither away, but that satin will be here for 100 years. So that was something else he brought to the table. Another thing he brought to the table, he would always ask me this. He said, Darryl, he said, what time you think you're going to be here in the morning? I said, man, I'm going to be finished. I said, I'm going to sleep the night before. And I can honestly say, in the 50-plus years I've been involved in it, I've not really had a chance to sleep the night before Mardi Gras. I've never been to Lundi Gras. I used to say, I'm going to Lundi Gras. I'm going to be finished. Never happened. 50 years, never happened. You know, it's a hell of a position to be in when you're working on a suit. Mardi Gras is 8 hours away. You're tired, you've been up for 2 days. You looking at the bed looking at you, and you can't get in it.
Yeah, that's a painful thing. Yeah, that's a painful thing. When you watching your family sleep, and you at the foot of the bed, you got the TV on low, you got a little TV tray, and you sewing, and they're snoring their ass off. And you like, damn. Now, you could stop. You could push the tray on the side and get in the bed, but guess what? When you come back, that pattern gonna still be sitting there, and it's gonna be unattended to. So now, you done lost, however, 3 hours, 4 hours, so now you're trying to make up that 4 hours. Oh, listen, people, and the other beautiful thing we had that the guys are letting go, you didn't get to see these suits until Mardi Gras Day.
That's right.
It didn't matter who you was, and that's in part why the so-called white status quo, whatever they call themselves, because they couldn't get in. They could not get in. And Harold Fedderson is what made Chief lock the front door, because Harold was masking with him, and Harold came in, they let him in, and when Mardi Gras Day came, Harold had on Tootie's color without asking him. But a lot of the photographers and so-called news people, they could not get in. You see nothing. No photographs. You can't even cross the sill of the door. But when Harold went in Tootie's house, Tootie masking with him. But you don't take the chief color without the chief giving you permission. Harold went in, took the color. Carnival Day, Harold jumping up and down. It was a pretty color. Harold jumping up and down, and Tootie said, "You son of a bitch." Okay. So from that point on, hey, check, baby, check 1, 2, 3. You couldn't get past the door. And I never knew why it was so difficult to get in that house until Tootie sit me down and told me. He said, "Let me tell you why I don't let everybody in here." But this thing was so culturally tight and spiritually tight, because it was all we had, and it was ours, and it was forced upon us. We had to be creative in the midst of all of the insanity to create something that sustained our stability, and that beauty is what allowed us to sustain our stability, because other than that, what else you was gonna do? And segregated carnival was a hell of a thing. I mean, we were so ingenious. You didn't just have the Mardi Gras Indians. You had the Saint and Sinners. You had the baby dolls. You had all kind of little creative behaviors people would put together, because why? We were relegated to the black community. And because we were relegated to the black community, we had to create our own Mardi Gras. And in doing so, we were good at it. I don't care how big the float was. You wasn't no comparison, because what you had on the float, primarily that was a costume. we had something that was made, bead, sequin, thread, feather, right? Hand by hand, hour by hour, iota of a minute by iota of a minute. So you didn't go in the store and buy that and then you slap it on and then you go down the street. No, it didn't come by the yard. The only thing came by the yard was Marabou. Everything else was in a tube or on a string or in a glass bottle or in a pack, individually, one at a time. So I'm just trying to give you as much of a vision of this thing. This is not a game of play, people. This is a game of for real. And what separates Tootie from everybody else is his ability to be consistent year after year after year after year after year.
One year,
Yeah.
he stood out. My sister Denise is in the audience, and she was getting married. And that year, my daddy took off from Madison to help her with her wedding. And then right after that, he went back at it again.
Oh, yeah. In debt. I mean, I think his grandmother died, right? He kept going. I mean, it just, listen. And I was one of those people who took the position that if you wasn't there to see me mask Indian, that's your loss. I don't have to walk around showing you our mask. I don't have to brag about our mask. No, I made a commitment to my tribe and to my chief and to my community. I stood up to my commitment. I'm done. I'm moving on with the other aspects of my life. If you missed it, I didn't miss it. I did what I said I was going to do. Now, if you wasn't there, that's not my problem. I don't need to go get no pictures and show you this what I did in 63. This what I did in 64. No. Did that go on move your laws?
How can we hold on to his legacy, but also what the whole community has created? A lot of us are feeling a sense of loss, and it's moving, it's evolving in a certain direction. How can we hold on to this unique and precious tradition?
This is just my thought. I think one of the things that in the whole black experience, we have to get better about having oral history. The more oral history we have, the more likely we are to grab somebody, or somebody grab it, or gravitate to it. And the problem that we have, not just in the United States, but outside the United States, with attrition, the old people going out, the young people come in. The young people coming in, and what they don't understand is you cannot have a top and don't have a bottom. You have to have a foundation. Some friends of mine were in one of the islands and they were having carnival. And they came back, I think it was Rudy Lombard. He came back, he said, Freddie, he said, man, we went down to one of the islands and the younger guys were going back and forth with the older guys because the younger guys wanted to change the tradition. Well, what we were taught was none of us in this room, especially in the black experience, none of us stand on our own. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you made. We all stand on the shoulders of somebody else that fought, bled, and died for us to do what we are doing. It is our responsibility to love, respect, and know that. And when we don't love and respect and know that, there is where we get twisted. Because what happens is we get off into the thing of saying, well, I'm doing my thing. And I'm going to deviate a minute. Darryl said the bucket men. My job in the bucket men was to pay for the band. At that time, Bourbon Street didn't have all that foolishness it has now. It had real New Orleans music there. And you could go to one corner and on 4 different bars, there was the Eureka Band playing, the Olympia Brass playing. All of the major brass bands was playing. And these old guys wore black pants, white shirt, tie. And let me tell you something. This was in the 70s. Unequivocally, the contract was $8,000. But the young cats called the old cats Uncle Toms. Well, Uncle Tomed all the way to the bank. Because they knew how to show up, what to wear. They had a genre of music. They knew what to play. They wasn't going to play it, take your effing drawers off, right? They wasn't going to talk about, I got a dime, I only need 8. They're not going to celebrate no drug paraphernalia. But they made money, and they took care of their families, and they played around the world. So when we talk to the young guys, well, I don't want to do that. Well, what you want to do? Well, when we let you do what you want to do, then we don't know what it is you're doing. Are you rap? Are you R&B? Are you a high school band? What do you represent? So now the old people who played music for white people, and the reason they played music from Danny Barker said, listen, we picked up the instruments to stop the white people from being brutal to us. So we figured if we got a gig that would play for them and entertain them, we could make money. They still call us out our name, but we could make money and not come home greasy, dirty, funky, smelly. So the psychology in it was how I'm going to keep this abrasive system off our necks. But when we try to tell that to the young people, they say, oh, man, I don't do that. I don't do that. And you show up to play a funeral, and you got on short pants, halfway off your ass. It's embarrassing. And the old people who fought, bled, and died to play this music are turning over in their graves. But we got to be able to put it out there to say, listen, guys, listen, ladies, this is not how this go. And tourism come to New Orleans, the hospitableness, the cuisine, the music, and the proximity of things. New Orleans then become a destination wedding place. Check the band out. Check the band out. The band got black and white. There ain't no equivocation about it. And not only check the band out, check the genre of music they're playing. You show up at a wedding, these folks done spend thousands and thousands of dollars, and the band show up ragged in a mango seed. So when these people photograph this is what they have to show their children. They spend all this money on these gowns and tuxedos and a nice hall, and the band is looking like, damn it to hell. And that's because the guys and the ladies don't understand what they're worried. When you don't understand what you're worried, then you go for it, and they underbid each other. Or he can do it for $200, I can do it for $150. And the poor people, they don't know, they're just trying to have a little music, and it just gets on and on. So my thought is the more we can push the oral history, because again, it's simple. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. If you don't know where you come from, you have no way to know where you're going. So you create some shit in your head that's all it is shit, because it has no substance and it don't matter to anything.
Amen. Amen to the history. Did you?
Yeah. What do you think
I'm gonna say this. I remember right after Katrina, it was, basically we were hearing that they didn't want us back in the city, and some folks decided not to come back, and I was feeling like because they didn't want us back, I was gonna come back even more so. And I guess that's that warrior spirit that was passed down to us by being with this man. You know, even in a tradition, what I drive off in it is that when, because you know, in the tradition, there's a lot of people that, I guess they say things to try to get under your skin. And with me, as it relates to my work, I like a person to doubt what I can do, because that's the fuel that I need to drive even harder. So that's that driving force for me. You know, we're not leaving. We're going to continue this. Again, in 2017, I thought I was done. And I guess I probably needed a break because sewing at that level for like 35 plus years without a break, it's wear and tear on your body, on your mind. And you got to take him back up for a minute. And I never forget, I was wondering, when my daddy retired, he came back 2 years after that, for 2 years. And I was a little upset. I said, nah, it's my turn. You know, it's my turn. But now I find myself in that same kind of situation where I had retired, but I still have a little flickering in me that I still want to do it. And I'm going to say this, that I miss it so much. I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm coming back, y'all. Yeah. I can't wait. And I need to say this, that life has not been, yes. And all of the stuff that I've dealt with, I want to come out this year, and I just want to spray my. You understand?
So Darryl, what Darryl is, I'm gonna give it to you in another way. There was a lot of talk about what was gonna happen to the black culture, second line, Mardi Gras Indians. And when I'm asked that question, what I say to you is, the culture as we know it was not legislated in, and it can't be legislated out. So as long as there's the Mississippi River, you're gonna have the culture. Now, will it be what we knew it to be? No, because in evolution, things change. And sometimes we get in history where we see some aspects of it, history repeats itself. But there's always going to be a second line. There's always going to be a Mardi Gras Indian. And it may not be to the tune of what we are accustomed to, but it's going to be because there's a river. And, you know, there's nothing going to happen to that river other than it's going to come back into the city and take over everything that it once was possessing. But no, there's always going to be a black culture because Congo Square, and if I could, the slave owners who owned the slaves in the earlier days, imagine that the city was from the river to Rampart. And the slave owners who did not speak the language of the slaves said to them, don't speak your language inside the city. The slave owners did not know whether or not the slave were talking to them or against them. So they said, tell you what. And now you got to remember, you had the down in the islands, Toussaint Overture and them. So they said, listen, because New Orleans was one of the few places where slaves was allowed to gather in mass numbers. Every place else, you went into a worship house, 1 and 2 at a time, but they didn't let you gather, not after what happened down in the island. So the owners here, what they did was, they said, Sunday, you leave the city. So the slaves start walking from the river this way. They get to Rampart, they cross over, they're outside the city, they find this space that we now know as Congo Square. So slaves come from all up and down the river to this spot. Well, because it was such a joyful moment for them, they cried, they danced, they sing, they laughed, they realized who made it, they realized who didn't, and then they went back when the sun went down and worked their asses off so that they can come back to Sunday. Well, that raised the productivity for the slave owners because the slaves want to make sure they can work, and Saturday evening, late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, they can come out. And that square is what preserves the culture that we now experience and witness now. And that's what I'm saying now and trying to say earlier. The reason we have this problem is because we don't understand where we come from. And when we don't understand where we come from, we have no way to know where we're going. And that in lies the problem. But you're going to always have a black culture. It may not be what we grown accustomed to, but it's going to be. And it doesn't matter. I sent Ray a song by Ray Charles 3-4 times. And in that song it says, ain't none of us gonna get out alive. I don't care how great we are, care how good looking we are, how many miles we run, how many sit-ups we run, you gonna die. And you're not taking nothing with you, and you're not sending nothing on the head. Follow me? So if somebody else will come along and, there may be another Tootie Montana. We may not be here, but somebody else may come along and somebody say, I remember 40 years ago, there was a man who did this the same way. But it won't die because it got embedded in here by the slave owners who thought they were giving the slaves a break, and they did us a really good job because that's how we get to have the continuance of what we do, because all of it come out of Congo Square. But, white people banged us up so bad until when we start talking about Africa, we start saying, no, that's the jungle. No, that just crazy stuff.
Do you see that they're moving more into the public schools with the history of the Black Mexican Indians?
Darryl?
Let me just say this. I had an opportunity to do classes at Xavier. Prior to doing that, it appears as if not too many, the culture was like a don't touch kind of thing. And I believe right around the time 1995 when my daddy retired, he was asked to come do some work at St. Luke Church on Governor Nichols and to teach a class. And he did it for a minute. And he said, Darryl, you the chief. Now he said, you go on and do the classes. So I started doing classes. And the thing about it is this. I realized that when I came into it, that really if you wasn't family, a very, very close friend, you didn't get an opportunity to learn how to do this. And I say, well, if we decide not to do it, then who's gonna take it over? It dies. So what I started doing, I started doing the classes. I did the classes at Xavier. I did classes at Xavier for about over 20 years. And then I wound up, I was working at a New Orleans charter middle school. I taught about, locally and nationally, I've taught over 3,000 kids. I've also taught some of the seniors. In the culture, I was always about economic development, and I used to see, I've seen times when we would go and we wanted to do interviews with some of the seniors, and a lot of times, you know, they'll give you time, but their light bill is due, or another bill is due. So I would always try to do something that can kind of generate funds for that particular person. So what I was doing, I was working at a senior citizen center, and I was teaching the seniors how to make the little Indian dolls, and that was something that they can make them, sell them, and it could supplement the income that they were receiving. And like I said, I worked with the kids, and my vision was, because I was trying to do a museum, and my vision was to try to take and my thing was with the kids was to get them before the drug dealers get them. So if I could teach them something that they could do with their hands and they can sell and make an honest dollar, then that's a plus. Again, like I say, I've seen some of my students, and I had one young lady that would wind up being my queen. And if you saw her pieces, and this was right after Katrina. Katrina broke the city up. I hadn't seen her. And when I did get a chance to see her after Katrina, she told me she made pieces, but she just needed me to help her to organize it and set it all up. But I tell you, if you looked at her work and you looked at my work, you could not tell who made what. She had mastered it. So as far as teaching in the schools, I believe that there are some other chiefs that's going around in the schools and teaching the kids. As long as we keep passing it on, then it'll never die.
I think maybe he's talking about in a curriculum, and I don't
know, because I haven't been in the classroom. I haven't been in the classroom.
I don't really think they are, but we.
But basically, everybody is not attracted to it, you know, because any black masking Indian, he does it because he want to do it. And sometimes when you're pushing it on another person, they don't have the heart that you have.
It's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody. I wish I knew how to do it myself. You're supposed to smile when I say that. You know.
Big Chief
Chief
Delco
Clarence
of the
Delco.
Creole
No,
Osceola.
Yeah.
Also out of the Yellow Pocahontas.
Well, I learned after I got out of Vietnam, it was something I had to do. And doing it, that was one of the things that I picked up. Because when I got hit in Vietnam, I just didn't think anything else was going to happen. So when I met Tootie Montana, and I must say it, the man always talked straight. He always talked straight. My dad said, why don't you go talk to Tootie? I come from a place called Boscoville, the three villages of Gentilly, Sugar Hill, Polyland, and Boscoville. And I don't know none of you guys up there, but I do know one that's called Mr. Blazio. He told me a lot of things, taught me a lot of things. Fred taught me a lot of things. Tootie taught me a lot of things. And I had to think about, where is this going that you like? You know, and Fred said a lot of sweet things there tonight. He would never tell me that before in life, you know, but he said a lot of good things. You learn from each other, but I could not do what they do. You know, couldn't sew 60 pieces, 100 pieces. You know, and I didn't know how to draw. So I had to get people that knew this. I found one. He smoked a lot of weed with me, a lot. And then smoked so much we couldn't smoke no more. Had to come to an end. I dream it, he draw it, I sew it. That was our method. He couldn't sew, but he could draw. And when you smoking, you come up with all kind of ideas.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
All kind of ideas. So in doing that, I could not do it like you all were doing it. You all call it three-dimensional, huh? Three-dimensional. I called it three-dimensional flat. That's right. I sew a whole sheet, long as a ironing board. I just keep that one sheet in there. But when I put it on, a whole side is done. A whole side. But everybody do it different. All tribes do it different.
Yeah.
Just keep doing it.
Well, I'm trying. But it's not working out too good. I used to have a friend, I go by his house, and he cursed me out so bad I stopped going to his house. I think Blazio know who he is, you know. But he was good. He used to teach me a lot of stuff. I learned a lot of stuff off of Fred. A lot of stuff off of Fred. And in positions. That meant a lot. And the reason why I say that is so many kids out there wish they could do this, but just don't know how. So you got to come up with your own thing.
We're trying.
I know you are.
Thank you so much, Chief Delco. I want to thank all the panelists tonight, Ray Blazio, Fred Johnson, and Darryl Montana. Thank y'all for spending the evening with us. I hope we can come back next year and do it again, even bigger. So
Thank y'all.
thank y'all.